All right, we're back. I went and got the 645 because I forgot it. And I've got 45mm lens on here. So let's go. All right, this is the Cumberland River and it has been super flooded lately. I figured it'd be a good time to get a picture of it. Let's do a couple meterings. Let's figure out some exposures here. First off, let's take off the Sony. Let's think about what we want to shoot. The Sony's got the 35mm on. We'll get an idea here what's going on. Let's shoot these at f5.6 to an f8. So there's 5.6. Let's see here, ISO 125. The shutter, I like it at about 1/800. So let's take a photo. Let's take another one at a 1,000. And then let's take one at 640. All right, let's see which one we like the best. I think the one at 1/1000th is probably the best exposure, I'd say. Let's get that 35mm out. Turn it on, it works better, I heard. Are we gonna keep some of this foreground in, or are we gonna get rid of it? I kinda like it in there. Let's leave it in for now. All right, f5.6, ISO 125, shutter 1,000. Or my light meter on the camera, internal meter, is saying it's a little bit overexposed. Looks like the sky's almost 2 stops over. All right, let's try one. Now this shot is metering from the Sony. I took the photo that I like from my digital camera, the Sony a7R II, and now I'm matching it with film. So ISO 125, f5.6, 1/1000th of a shutter. Let's take it. Okay, now on this, let's get an exposure based off of the internal meter here. So it's saying 1250 for a shutter. As I point it down towards that water, it says it's overexposed. I'm holding it, it's kind of like where the barge and stuff is at, is kind of the middle. It says it's dead on right there. Let's take it right there. All right, here we go. Got it. Now let's take some with the light meter. Now again, I want my lens to be at a 5.6 because I just think it looks sharp there. Okay, so just pure sunlight is saying 1,000 at a 5.6. So that's what we shot earlier, and we like that. That's with the incident meter. All right, so now let's try the reflective meter. All the same settings. Let's see what we got going on here. Let's find our brightest point here. The sky is at a 10. There's an 11 to the left. Okay, to the left a little brighter. It's 11. Let's look at the water. 8, 7, 7, 7. Look at those barges, 5. What else is bright around here? Closer I get to me on the water, the brighter it is. All right, so the brightest thing I can find is an f11, so let's set that. I gotta clear the memory real quick. All right, so f11 is our brightest thing that we wanna see some detail in. Let's find the darkest thing. The right side of that barge towards the bottom of it is like an f4. Definitely want detail on that. Some of the trees and stuff over there are 3.6. Some of the darkest spots, I'm not super worried about that. We don't have any detail there. So let's see, f4, 4.5 on the left. Farther to the right, we got a 4.5, 4. Some of the wooded areas over there is 3.6 on the far right, which I think f4 will be our darkest spot, and f11 will be our brightest. So, all right, let's average that. So it's saying 6.3 is our average. Okay, so let's shoot one with a aperture of a 6.3, shutter of 1,000. Cool. We got a guy over here grinding on something. Let's try doing 2 more exposures. Let's try doing a couple more readings. The grinder guy over here is really going at it. Let's wait for him. All right, so the f4 is the darkest spot. We want to see some detail in. So then let's just add 2 stops to find middle gray. So let's try doing that. So what I'm doing is I found the darkest spot of my image that I want detail in. That's an f4. we're gonna put it in the shadows. So we need to count up 2 stops to find middle gray from F4. So that will be an F8. We found the darkest part of the image, which technically was a 3.5, I think, or 3.8. We're gonna say 4. We're gonna do 2 stops to find middle gray. So we're gonna count up 2, so 4, F5, 6, F8. So the exposure would be F8. All right, let's take one at F8 and see what that looks like. Let's take another one, F7.1, to see if we can't, how much of a detail we're gonna find in those areas that were a little bit darker in the 3.5 area. Let's see what it does. All right, 2, 3. All right, now let's do it the opposite direction. Our brightest part of the image is F11. So we'll put that in the highlights, and we want detail in it still. So then we will add 2 stops of light by opening the aperture up to f5.6. And we've already taken some shots at 5.6. So let's see what happens when we put 3 stops different. So we'll open up the aperture one more to f4. So f4 would be 1 more stop of light. So basically, instead of putting the highlights 2 stops above middle gray, let's see what it'll look like if we put it 3 stops above middle gray. There we go. All right, and 2, 3. There we go. So now let's bust out the Pentax 645. And I love shooting with this thing. So let's see what the photos from this thing look like compared to the 35. There we go. Turn it on. All right, so this is ISO 100, a little different film. Now let's use the camera's internal meter and see what we get. Let's stay with the shutter of 1000, f5.6, ISO 100. Let's see what kind of readings we're getting here. So it's saying it's underexposed. Let's go ahead and give it an extra stop of light. We're gonna go to 1/500th of a second with the shutter. And that's saying it's over a touch. So let's stop it down. There's a 6.7. All right, so f6.7 and a 500th. I like that. So this is right on the money. Let's try a shot. 2 and 3. Okay, great. There's a shutter of 1000, and then let's try just changing the f-stop. See, there's a 4.5, says it's right on the money. So let's try that one. Let's see if we'll notice any difference with that. Now, let's use the bulb. Direct sunlight is saying f8. Just for the sake of trying it, let's just see what happens. So 500th of a second with the shutter, f8, ISO 100 film, saying it's underexposed in the light meter. I pointed up towards the sky, says it's right on the money, but as far as the entire image, it says it's under, but let's try it. I don't think that one's gonna work, but let's try. Let's do the exact same thing, but let's get an average. Start looking around. We know where the brightest spot is, to the left, so it's saying 14, f14. And the rest of the sky is a 12.7, so f14, put that in there as the brightest spot. We know where the darkest spot's at, on the right side of that barge. Darkest thing I can see is an f5. Average that, wow. It's saying to take an exposure at an f9. Huh, okay. That's an average of the brightest things and the darkest things in the image. And it's saying f9. Shadows are a stop and a half under, highlights are a stop and a half over, obviously. Let's try it, just for the sake of seeing what works the best here. Got it. Great. Let's start with the shadows. So we got an f5 in the shadows, and then we count up 2 stops to find middle gray. And again, that's an f9.5, and we've already taken that shot. So we're not gonna worry about taking that shot again. We'll just know that that's what we would meter at. From the shadows, counting up will give us the exact same reading as averaging it. So now let's try the other way. So f14 is our brightest. We're gonna add 2 stops of light to that, which puts it at f6.7. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, now I wanna experiment a little bit with putting the highlights 3 stops above middle gray. So let's try that. So we were at f14, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, which puts us at an f4.5. Let's take that. Bam. All right, we got it. All right, here we are at another location that I thought would be cool. Let's take an incident meter reading real quick. Shutter, let's start it out at 1000, ISO 125, pure daylight is gonna say a 5.6. Let's see what the internal camera meter says. Right there's a f7. Let's try taking that shot. Got it. Let's do an average of the scene. So let's get our reflective meter out. Okay, so the brightest thing is f9. So let's look around for the darkest thing that we want detail in. Remember, detail. That tree is the darkest thing that I see. Let's go ahead and punch that in too. 3.6, all right, hit an average. So we're looking at an average of 5.6. Now at the 5.6, we've already taken that shot. So now let's look at the highlights. The brightest thing in that image was an f9. So we're gonna go to 5.6 again. So 5.6 really seems to be our meter reading, but let's try putting the highlight 3 stops over. So that's 4.5. Let's try shooting one there. Let's get back to the 645. For our last shot, let's do 3 stops of light to be consistent with the rest of the photos we took. Here we go, 2, 3. That's a cool sound. All right, y'all, it's been fun.